I'll be the last one standing. Two hands in the air, I'm a champion. You'll be looking up at me when it's over. I live for the battle.
Hey guys, where is Pixie now? I'm in my home in Charleston, South Carolina. On a couple of next episodes, I think I'm going to take you around so we get some different background just for those of you who are watching these beautiful videos. And I am so excited that you joined me today for the 7th episode of Spiritually Speaking with Pixie Paula. I've been waiting for this all week long because, you know, the diverse topics that we've been talking about over the past episodes. But today I get to bring my dear friend, Jenne Sevilla, and I'm so excited about it because I can actually talk finance with her because she is a financial guru. And I can't wait to share with you her story, and you will hear it straight from her own words and heart, how she's gotten into the financial services industry, what it's been like for her as a female in this male-dominated industry, and what her greatest challenges, successes, and blessings are. So we're going to dive deep in right away to Spiritually Speaking with Jenne. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. Such a great treat.
Where do we start? We've been friends now. I can't even remember. How did we meet?
We've crossed paths somewhere along the way, but it was recently reaching out to do some collaboration at a workshop that I was hosting.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes. So I was made aware of the workshop that you were going to do called Money Moods. And I went to attend that workshop, which, by the way, was absolutely fabulous. And, you know, I've been in the financial services industry since the early 80s. So it's been many, many decades for me. And I just love the twist that you have on educating women about financial management. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Definitely. It was the missing piece in the financial plan. What I experienced early in my career was these outputs of, here's your financial plan. And within 6 months, it was either on a shelf or forgotten about or no longer relevant because things changed. And leading up to the financial plan being generated, I felt like there should have been more conversation around your feelings around money and how you relate to money. Because I kept seeing people that were really good with saving and people who were really bad at saving, and getting into the understanding of the driving forces behind those behaviors intrigued me. So I started when I was putting together Money Moods and how I wanted to do financial planning. I started identifying these 5 very distinct moods and the way people started relating to money. And the thing was, there may be one dominant mood, but all 5 of them are important. So my teaching really pulls in all 5 so that you can move in and out of all of those seamlessly.
Sure. So you branded it beautifully, by the way, and you make it relatable to everybody so that they could break it down to the fact that, hey, they're spending and they're saving, and the way that they relate to money is based on their mood, their emotional connection to money, right? Money's not really a thing, right? It's all based on energy and the movement of buying and selling and what goods and services are worth to an individual. But the dollar, for example, is related very differently in other countries, other cultures, people who actually live in civilizations where they just barter and use trade. So the relationship with that currency and how you move that through the marketplace is really all about how you feel inside. So brilliant, brilliant breakdown. So why don't you unpack that for us a little bit?
It's been a long journey. I, followed a very typical path into the industry, transitioning from a sales role, and thought I could, with a 1-year-old on my hip, be able to step into this role and take it on easily. And it was not the case. The first 2 years was a complete disaster. I was a failure. I couldn't find my footing. Couldn't really get into the training methods, and there was no connection for me. And I wanted to take the conversation so much deeper right off the bat, I knew education was at the core of what I wanted to do. And so the first 2 years of failure after failure after failure, I finally just threw my hands up and said, I can't do this. I'm done. It's not for me. And that was very difficult just to get to that statement and admitting I'm failing and I don't want to fail anymore. So I went and I spoke with a therapist, of course, to get past all of this depressive feeling. And she said, you're spinning too many plates. And there it was. I began to recognize all of this behavior around the scarcity and balancing everything, especially as a woman with children and a family. And how do you balance all of it? But ironically, when I went to the temp agency, I said, I just don't care where I go at this point. I went right back into the industry as a support role. And I'm thankful for all of that training and experience I got. But, I wanted the education, the certifications, the licensing. And so I balanced both and would wake up as early as 4:30 in the morning to study and spent my lunch breaks at testing centers and chipped away at the education so I could get the credentials. But the support role allowed me to do that because I had the structure and I had the paycheck that was able to support the family, which was a good relief, a nice relief from where I had been before. But
well, that's fortunate that you had that structure. I know, again, I got my Series 7, which is a stockbroker's license in the early 80s. And I don't think it's changed very much, today, unfortunately, but I was the only female in my entire class sitting for the Series 7. And they didn't make it easy. You mentioned kids on your hips. I was literally pregnant and in labor, and I needed to use the restroom so bad. And back in the day, everything was the fill-in oval with the pencil. So they said, if you leave the room, that's it. You accept the fail and you can't come back into the room. And I was like, I have to use the restroom so bad. And there was no bargaining. I had to stay there. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't care if I'm going to pee in this freaking chair, fill out these damn ovals until I can turn over my paper and hand it in. And it's a hard thing for those that don't know. The Series 7, which is pretty much the first license that you need to get to be able to manage and represent financial securities in the marketplace. And that's the equivalent of taking the bar. And the pass-fail ratio is 70%. So more people fail than pass the exam. So congratulations to you for getting through that. And it's great that you had that support structure to keep you in line. Look, life is a struggle, right? It's meant to be. Our greatest blessings come through overcoming those challenges and realizing and connecting with the true grit that we have. It makes us stand up, right? So then what happened next? So now you're going through the first step, you're studying, you're in a support role, you're learning. How do you get to the point where you decide to branch out?
It was forced upon me. I went after I earned my certified financial planner designation. I basically asked for a seat at the table as an advisor, and there was no seat for me. And so the exit there, it had to happen. I was not going to stay in a support role any longer. I knew I wanted to take on lead and have clients of my own. And so I branched out and went independent, and the rest is history. Here we are. Money Moods all evolved. It came out of me in so many different forms. Your brilliant idea from the beginning, now I look at it and go, I can't believe I was actually successful with that small little idea, but it grew. And then the branding came along with it. Once the idea really started crystallizing and the structure started falling into place, and I started seeing the results with the clients, was where the branding just took off. And here we are with Money Moods.
That's amazing. It's so true, because you probably felt the impact and the measurement that you could make with your clients, right? I first started with IDS Financial Services, which then became American Express Financial Advisors, which is now Ameriprise Financial Advisors. And I totally got goosebumps when you talked about there was no seat at the table. After 20 years of practice with that group, I had my first brush of what a I say financial discrimination, but first, truly just my first brush with discrimination. I was approached by the legal departments within the organization that said that they had been accused of financial discrimination. The men in the company were making more money than the women in the company were making. And so because of that, with the gender issues, I was actually offered to separate from the company for a payout. And I said, I do not want to separate. I absolutely love my job. I would do my job for free. And they said, no, you don't understand that. Gender discrimination is a big thing. And we're using a company this large to make the point. And so that was, this is back in 2001. That's the way to really, stand up for the sisterhood, to say, okay, you're going to make a point of this. It's going to cost people some money, and we're going to rectify some of these inequalities. So I, at that point, had to go independent, and I didn't even want to. And they're like, you don't understand. You don't have the choice. So it was a U.S. government thing, and it was just a class-wide discrimination lawsuit that was brought for all of these big players. So I'm so glad that you're here and you're independent and you're working. And I know that you're making an impact because I've attended your sessions and I love them. And I hear all of your clients say amazing things about you. So for somebody that's new, that's trying to get into financial planning, I love our partnership because I work mostly on business development at this point in my career. And I love the fact that there's somebody that I trust with all of my heart and resources to say, okay, Jenny's going to start you in making sure that you are taken care of here at the base camp before you start worrying about growing a business, right? So it's kind of like the oxygen mask on the plane. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you try to take care of somebody else. And I think that's important here. You have to have the cornerstones taken care of before you move into developing your business, or the whole house of cards comes tumbling down. So why don't you talk a little bit about how your approach is to managing those cornerstones? And I love I can't wait for people to go and take the test for money moods to figure out what mood they are, because again, the clever twist that you put on it was brilliant branding for yourself, but also it just makes it so easy and relatable to your clients.
Yes. And it's even funny, as we sit around our table for Milestoners night, I still hear the clients at the table saying, well, I was my spontaneous mood, but now I've moved over to guarded. And it now is becoming an everyday language, which is the whole point of understanding that relationship. So it starts with the quiz.
Okay.
Finding that dominant mood. Knowing where you naturally land. Some people can relate to more than one, and that's okay. I myself am guarded, and my second is definitely a generous. So those are the two that are in play many times whenever I'm making financial decisions. But when you understand the mood first, then we transition into a methodology of understanding all the different pieces of money. Budgeting is not a word that I choose to use too often. I kind of relate it to a diet. The more you start talking about you can't have carbs, you can't have this, then you start wanting them more, right? So when you start living in scarcity with money, same thing's going to happen where you're going to want to go out and spend and be sneaky about it. And it just bubbles up all of these emotions that really you can avoid. Let's not go there. But understanding the baseline of where's the money going, because we want to tell it where to go instead of wonder where it went. So when we flip that around and start directing the money into appropriate buckets and building out the buckets, then you have this foundation for all of the growth. If you want to build the business, if you want to move into the next thing, so that if the sky falls, you have a safety net there. The AC goes out, there's a leak in the ceiling, something happens with the transmission of the car. These are all of the things that people run into on a day-to-day basis that creates this stress bubble within a family that can be avoided if you just properly fund emergency funds and deferred spending. So that's really the foundation of how we get started. Where's the money going? And let's tell it where to go first.
I love that. So instead of being reactive, like, where did all my money go? You're really being proactive and you're telling the money where to go. Good choice of words. And then you do
Mhm.
have control of your money and your spending, and you're aware. So maybe it will change your habits to put you more in alignment with your future financial goals. I remember when I
Mhm.
took the test, I was a generous. And I love that because I wonder, I probably would have been a guarded for most of my life, but I'm at the point in my career and my lifestyle and my life financial span that I'm in the generous space and I love being in
Mhm.
that. But I'm like, oh, what a difference to go from really having to, count every penny and
Mhm.
worry about, well, I don't like, I'm not wasteful. So I'm always so in control of where the dollars are going, but being able to think from the perspective of how do I want to spend my money? I love the feeling. So if for nothing else, women should plan. I do a talk that talks about the fact that 99% of women will be 100% alone at some point in their life. Are
Mhm.
you 100% financially ready? And it never ends from the time that you're young and you're somebody's child, you become somebody's spouse, then you become somebody's caretaker and you're a mom, and then the daughter of your parents who at some, you then become their caretaker again. So it never ends for a woman to be in charge of taking care of and serving her family and her friends and her community. So it's not something that you can really ignore. It has
Mhm.
to be addressed.
Mhm.
I think that if we could get this education to younger and younger people, just their lives would just, especially now, right? The life expectancy is doubling in the next
Yes.
10 to 15 years. How are
Mhm.
you going to be able to outlive your financial resources if you don't pay yourself first? You've got
Mhm.
to put that money away because I tell my girls this all the time. Getting married is not a financial plan.
No.
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 Hanging out in hope is not a strategy.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
You've got to do the work. And the
Mhm.
miracle of compound interest is an amazing thing,
Mhm.
right? Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
So important. It's just like going to the gym. The more your body develops and gets stronger, it's because you're systematically going and working those muscles. Same goes for the money. Your money is going to get stronger the more that you are systematically putting it away, whether it's on a pay period as it's coming into the home, or as soon as the money flows in as a business owner, you direct it to where it should go. And as it grows and grows and grows upon itself, the power of that is being forgotten, I think, these days,
Mhm.
where a lot of people are choosing not to invest in their 401ks because there's not that quick, immediate effect that some of the other investments may be providing. But this is just a complement to all the other strategies. And that I think we're forgetting is going through those motions of being systematic and just doing all of the basics and then layering on all of the other investments. That's the strategy that I think is forgotten these days with compounding.
Sure. And whether it's a 401k or an IRA, a Roth IRA, a deferred
Yes.
savings account, an HSA, a business plan, something that says, let's tuck a little bit aside for later. And full and fair disclaimer, by the way, we are not making any recommendations here. We're
Mhm.
simply talking in generalities. It's important for you to know the numbers. The numbers come first. Analyze your
Yes.
numbers, know your numbers. And as Jenny said, this is not about restricting you or putting you on a budget. This is about educating you and making your eyes be open and aware of, oh, this is what my lifestyle looks like. This is what I
Mhm.
want to accomplish. Now you have a goal, just like you have a goal in your career or a goal to get married or a goal to have a house or a goal to have children or go to start a business. Your goal now is I need to have my eyes wide open. When the
Mhm.
numbers are done, now you can start to have the conversations and the education about all the opportunities that exist in the marketplace. And there's
Mhm.
so many. I mean, just think about with crypto and NFTs and other currencies, there's so many
So
liquid
many.
assets, um, um, hard assets, precious metals, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, margins. There's just, it goes on and on and on. Life insurance vehicles, specialty vehicles, annuities. I mean, the investment world is huge. First, you have to know your numbers.
Yep. And structure your system and work those muscles so that that's where the foundation is strong.
I think too often people try to sell away products and they just sell somebody a financial instrument, let's say an annuity. And then they come and they'll have an analysis with me and we're having a conversation. And they're like, oh, I already took care of my retirement. I bought an annuity. And I look at their situation and I think, oh, you did what? Well, you did what now? And it's sometimes complicated and hard to get out of investments that maybe were inappropriate financial vehicles for you.
Right.
So I keep saying, go back to a financial plan. You got to have a solid plan. It's like, you wouldn't start building a building without having an architect to draw up the draw and the design.
That's right.
Right. Or the whole house is going to come tumbling down.
Yeah. And we know how many rooms are in a house, you know?
And you know what? You're always wanting to expand. So you got to have a solid structure. How empowered do you feel now that you know about money?
It's enlightening, and empowering is an understatement because the perspective of where money was before. I mean, we know that the fluctuations of the market, fluctuations of income, fluctuations of life creates these peaks and valleys of account balances in a general sense, right? And whenever the valleys come, there's not as much fear because there's this foundation there. In talking with women and interviewing and just really understanding why there is this fear around money, it's because at night, it's the what if, it's the staring at the ceiling fan and thinking, going through the scenarios of everything bad that could happen. And if it did, where would you turn to? What would you do? And it creates anxiety that can be alleviated with proper planning and having the money. And so simple things, just knowing when the tires need to be replaced, the money's there. When the AC unit has to be replaced, it's there. And if a hurricane comes, you have the coverage, and this is what you can expect. Those little pieces are so valuable.
And sometimes it's not even about, like you said, the valleys and the emergencies. Sometimes people are worrying unnecessarily because they still don't have that relationship with money and they have more than enough money to take care of themselves. I find this with a lot with my elder clients, that they are still so worried because they came out of a mentality in a space of maybe going through the depression or numerous cycles when the economics failed. Or I hate to say this, but if you're old enough, you didn't have a relationship with money because possibly your husband took care of all the finances and you got all of your money handed to you in cash, or maybe you wrote a few checks or you had a credit card, but you weren't the money manager in the family. And so now you're worried because you don't have this relationship, but you might have plenty of money and never need to worry. My mom is the perfect example for that. She's always worried. And no matter how much I point out to her and say, Mom, I've been doing this for 40 years. You're well taken care of. We planned every step of the way. But she says, oh, I only see what's in my checkbook. And I'm like, yes, that's because she doesn't look beyond all the buckets that we filled to take care of every single potential situation that could come her way. So I'm always saying, go remodel your kitchen, go on a vacation, buy a new car, do something. Unless you want to leave it all to me, I'm okay with that too. But as soon as I throw that in there, she's like,
oh,
I'm
no.
gonna go buy some dresses. Yeah, so I'm gonna go get a new pocketbook. I'm like, okay, you go right to town. So it's also that it's not a scary thing to uncover. You might just decide that you put the worry to bed because you've done an analysis and you're like, oh, I'm pretty good here. It's also worth that peace of mind to do an analysis, even if you have plenty of money. The other thing is getting into the category where you have so much money that you're going to be throwing it away, where you start to really have to look at tax planning, estate planning, How do you keep more of what you want? And even if that's not a concern, then think about charitable giving. If there's going to be all of this excess within your portfolio, then take your estate and start to do good. We're back to what my thing was, the generous, start to do planned giving. And that also helps to preserve the wealth of your estate. So there's so many things to look at every stage of your life. And if we could help women start young. Again, that miracle of compound interest as an accumulator is building. And more importantly, setting up that discipline, right?
From the get-go.
Discipline.
Definitely.
So now, do you have children now?
13-year-old son.
And do you teach him savings?
Oh, yes. He is his grandfather. My grandfather, his great grandfather now, has always given $2 bills. And I always gave him the eyes of, you're going to save that $2 bill. So now, his stack of $2 bills from Thanksgivings and Christmases and birthdays and all of the holidays and, a random $2 bill here and there. And he said, Mom, I've been saving this for a long time. So he will not spend those because I have given him that tool of it's okay to save that. It's a special bill. You don't see them whenever you go to the grocery stores or shopping anywhere. So he is a saver. He likes to hoard his money, but the second the ice cream truck comes, that's the first thing he does is grab his wallet and go out the door. But that's what his money's for him to spend on those.
That's so clever. So what a unique way to teach, because you're right. Now this is something you really want to hold on to because it's special and unique. I love that concept. Kudos to him. That's really great. Yeah. I remember back, even if we used to get a silver dollar, it would be like, oh, this is so unusual. Yeah. Nobody wants to carry the weight of those around, right? So if you throw them in a bucket or a bottle, that's a great idea. Now, can you get $2 bills? I'm just curious, like, where would you even get them? Do you have to ask? Do they have them?
Yeah, my grandfather goes to the bank and he'll just get a stack of them and keep them, and he'll give them to kids, and it's his signature.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah. So let's talk a minute about your financial goals. What's your present, like, immediate future thing? What are you saving for?
My deferred bucket is funded for our trip to the Bourbon Trail in October. So I'm excited about that.
Nice.
That's the immediate. But, beyond that, I'm trying to grow Money Moods in a way that feels comfortable. That's really what I'm trying to figure out the next steps for, and continue the growth and be able to service more women and teach more women and reach more women is really the goal about Money Moods, that there is an alternate path to understanding money.
That's great. I know that you're going to be presenting for the Skirt Summit that's coming up in the next week or so. And that is a virtual presentation for women to be able to hear the stories of numerous women and how they have grown their businesses and share their stories, which are so inspirational. And then the follow-up to the Skirt Summit will be the Skirt Convention that we're having in Charleston, November 4th and 5th. And we're going to have one in Atlanta, October 14th and 15th. So anybody watching this that wants any information on our convention, please check in with us, because we would love to have you as guests. And I'm sure Jenny will have her booth set up and she can be talking about Money Moods and engaging with women who want to sign up to start taking control of their financial futures. Of course, I will be there to talk about building and developing businesses and how to manage cryptocurrencies or NFTs if you're interested in learning more about the blockchain and how we're moving into the Web 3.0. There's lots of exciting things that are on the horizon. I love the fact that technology is now leveling the playing field for everybody to really get engaged and get involved. And even though financials can seem daunting and overwhelming, how has technology allowed you to better service your clients?
I began doing virtual conferencing well before COVID. Zoom was there in a different form that I was using because I was being based in Charleston. I was servicing a very wide variety of clients as far as California. So it was a blessing to be able to start teaching folks to get comfortable
Mm.
doing a Zoom. And so teaching an elderly couple how to download the app and be able to open it and turning on their camera, I actually enjoyed slowing down and just hand holding to be able to teach that skill for someone of a different generation. Because now they are so accustomed to it. My conversations go so much beyond the money. Now we're just talking about when are the grandkids coming over, and I feel so much more connected. And it really taught folks that you can accomplish a financial plan without having to get in the car, drive across town, sit in the lobby and wait, and make an entire day of having to go and meet the planner. And I'm able to really laser coach clients through tough situations, tough conversations, faster, quicker, easier resolved.
Sure.
I'm more effective, I feel, with the technology to be able to just jump on a quick Zoom and say, I know the market's down and it's you're going to be okay, and this is why, and share a screen and show the entire plan again. Just that reassurance, I think, is really important, and avoid the back and forth and travel and waiting.
Sure. And I'm sure they appreciate it too.
Mhm.
You bring up an important point, though, about the relationship building and the bonds that you build with your clients. They trust you, right? With everything, with trusting
Mhm.
people with their money. If trust, right? Trusting someone with your money is a big deal. So let's not gloss over that a bit. You are, they're hanging on your advice, and they're trusting you enough to make recommendations that they feel confident that you have their backs, their hearts, their souls, their fronts, their ups and their
Mhm.
downs. It's not easy. It's not easy
Mm-mm.
to build that trust with people.
Mm-mm.
So, and I'm sure that this carries over into your other personal relationships. What do you think about how the whole money moods and the structure, and you're identifying those emotional relationships? How does building relationships in business help you in building relationships personally?
When it comes to the money conversation, I don't shy away from being point blank. How's your relationship with your husband? Because many times I'm seeing when a woman is struggling with money or financial situations, many times it's not because the cash flow is not coming into the house. It's
Mm.
because of the relationship with the husband, there's a disconnect. And so, beyond the money, when it comes to the business building, I'm going into that relationship and talking about how can you sit down and say, I want to save more money and I want you and I to do it together. And this is why. And if the answer is no, we're going to drill into that even more. So it's beyond the numbers. It really goes into formulating a plan with your significant other, as far as where do you want to go with this? You're not going to be working forever, or do you really want to? Maybe you do want to work forever. And whenever you get to the point where you're ready to slow down, what is that going to look like? Where are you going to spend your time? And I think a lot of times the pace of life is keeping couples from having those conversations.
Sure.
Put together a pie in the sky. Maybe you do want to do a 21-day cruise. Why not? Put it on the board. Let's plan for it. And I think that conversation starts out the relationship with, it doesn't matter what the goal is. If you really want it, you're going to reach it. And I carry that into my personal relationships, and that I am a cheerleader by heart. I'm telling you, I wake up out every morning and I am in a good mood, and I am the chipperest person getting coffee in the morning. I promise you, that's me. So whenever I'm in the business mindset and building those financial plans, I am the one that's cheering them along, saying, yes, you can. There is a way. You may not be able to do it next year, but it's definitely going to happen in year 2 or 3. And let's keep going. So all of that behavior and structure that I'm teaching, I'm also cheering behind it. saying, keep going, high five. And Kool and the Gang Celebration, that song, I will play every single time somebody hits a huge milestone, because celebrating is so underserved. We don't celebrate enough. And I bring that into everything, personal and business.
I love that. You bring up a really important point. You end up being an advocate, a mouthpiece, a voice for maybe someone who didn't have the courage to exercise her voice within that relationship. And so you're almost like sharing that therapy and opening that space to be this, counselor to get these couples to get on the same page. And maybe that's never even happened for them before. It could be, forget the financial part of this. This could be really earth rattling for some of these couples and life changing for some of these women, because you're advocating on their behalf. And maybe for those that get really turned off to saying, I don't know why my husband will not talk about this with me, or I don't know why he's telling me no. And maybe they get the courage to stand up and say, I want to know. I want to know what our financial situation is. So that's huge. I wasn't even thinking of it from that perspective, is that you're an advocate and a voice for people who may have been hushed or quieted. So that's so important. It could change their lives. And I love the fact that you're playing celebration. That's such a great thing. You're right. You're so right that we don't celebrate enough. Let me tell you, I just reached the hugest milestone of my entire career, my entire life so far, last Friday. Yeah!
High five, high five, high five.
And I have yet to celebrate. It's like, I'm so used to nose to the grindstone, that I was last Friday after it happened, everybody was out and about. The kids were everybody. My friend, I texted a couple friends, what are you doing? Everybody had plans. And I'm like, well, of course. I didn't even think about setting up a celebration. I was so about got to get the job done. And it's crazy. So I ended up buying the industrial park that my distillery is in. I've been trying to buy this for the last 4 years, and it's no easy feat. First of all, it's a multi-million-dollar deal, but for a woman to come into industrial commercial space and get a local bank to say yes, after for the last 2 years, over 30 bankers told me, no way, not going to happen. I finally had a female lender, Lori Swan, love her to pieces at UCBI, who stepped up and said, I want female owner occupied commercial real estate. I want it in my portfolio. And I love your striped pig spirit. She said, love it to the moon. And I want to support you. And I told her, I said, I've been turned down by every local bank that if I'm going to come in, even the bigger boys outside of local who would be like, no, you need to have 30-40% down. The deal's too risky. They don't invest in spirits. They don't want to understand my business plan. And I've been there for over a decade trying to build this. I've put millions of dollars into my operation and into my property. And finally she said, I don't understand. As long as the property is going to appraise out, you've already put the equity into the building. That should be counted. So it was hard, and everybody came together to really make the whole entire thing come. And the attorneys, the surveyors, the attorneys on both sides, and of course, everything that went wrong that could have gone wrong at the last minute. But at the end of the day, as of last Friday, and I'm working on the press release now, I haven't even gotten the press release out, like, in North Charleston, right, an opportunity zone, with an economic recession community, we're going to offer 40 to 50 new jobs in the community with the expansion. So now I'm like, okay, now what do I do? Now I really have to go raise a lot of money because now I own the property. So I've got to make the expansion and the improvements and turn it into a wonderful a community event center so we could do more of these kinds of workshops for women. I'm so excited about it. But yeah, I haven't even celebrated yet.
Oh, I hope you do, because I'm going to do a cartwheel. I might pull a hamstring, but I'm going to do a cartwheel for you. and celebrate on your behalf tonight for sure.
Thank you so much. We need to throw together a nice party at the Pig, and let's bring all the women's successes over their transitions, their metamorphoses, everything that they've had to go through in COVID to be able to come and not only survive, but thrive and pivot and share those stories. We've just got to be inspired by everybody. You are truly an inspiration. What would you like to say to women as we close the 7th episode of Spiritually Speaking with Pixie Paula? What are the last parting words that you'd like to share with us?
Know your money mood. Get to know it and embrace it. There's so many positives to all 5 of them. I don't even have time to get into each one of those. I hope to do that another time. I want women to know it and understand it. So leaving with the question as a carrot, what's a money mood?
I love it. Couldn't have said it better. We'll put all of your information in the links. And oh yes, we will be on to have a part 2 of Money Mood. So you want to stay tuned for when that is coming on, and you want to get on there, take your test and find out what your money mood is. I hope that everybody at some point gets to come out to be generous, because it's a wonderful space to hang out. And I thank you for sharing all of the money moods with us, and we will be back here soon.
Thanks for having me, Paula.
Glutathione is a big word. It's the body's own master antioxidant. It's a scavenger for free radicals, bacteria, and viruses. There are no products in the market with the ingredient NASET. NASET increases the production of glutathione that's in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system, elevate sense of well-being, support muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, and liver support. It helps with increased energy and blood sugar regulation. Get your bottle of GSH Plus from www.salvationnutra.com.